Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. It's a new week, new theme. This time we're checking out musical duos, any artist that is comprised of only two people. The performances, maybe the people on the recording itself, it can be more than just the two if they have session musicians, but the main artistic masterminds behind the project needs to just be two people. And we're going to be checking out a group that we've listened to before. This one is Low, and we just listened to them during Multiple Vocalist Week, which was a month ago, maybe back in January at the latest. I guess at the earliest. Be the longest away from now. Anyways, their last song that we checked out, No Comprende, really blew me away. The way that they intermixed the musical themes with the lyrical ones, it just created something that was very resonant with me. I thought it was fantastic. We're going to go back 4 years from that album to 2011 with the album Come On and the track Nothing But Heart. Let's see what Low is bringing to the table today. Very gritty, very grungy. Not what I would expect given that other song that I've heard from them, which is the only one. It's not a lot of context there.
I would be your king. But you wanna be free. Confusion and art. I'm nothing but
It's a very familiar sound. Sort of like a southern rock thing going on.
I'm nothing but heart.
Some vulnerable vocals on top of that. Very like drumming.
I'm nothing but heart.
Bass is basically non-existent. You just get these really big hits at the start of chord changes. And it just kind of resonates. Yeah, a bendy line right there.
I'm nothing but heart.
Very bluesy with those slurs.
I'm nothing but heart.
Now we do have some very faint second vocals here, playing harmony to the main ones.
Nothing but heart.
About an octave up. Very quiet though.
I'm nothing but heart. I'm nothing but heart.
are getting louder very gradually. We're about 3 decibels over where we started this repeating section, and about 15 over the beginning of this Southern Rock section. And as you can see with the volume meter on the left of the album art, we're getting very close to the peak. We're about 1 dB away from that. New guitar line coming in over here. So yeah, about a 3.5 minute slow burn just for this section, both with layering, dynamics, volume. Even the center vocals here, the primary ones, have a bit more body to them than when we started, where they were a bit more lighter and defeated, kind of. They have power behind them. Wild vibrato on this guitar on the left. Is that an effects pedal, or is that very extreme whammy bar usage? Having this new vocal line sort of fading in from across the song. What's interesting is what sounded very vulnerable at the beginning. It's still very bluesy too here, but it feels powerful. As if reclaiming what once brought you down is now something that you're going to champion. Organ. I was going to say organ, some sub-bass tone, water dripping, and then there was whispering in my ear, and it surprised me. Well, quite the slow burn, very different from what I was expecting given their last track. I think ultimately it winds up in a place that I think is very thematically resonant as well. Does remind me of their other song we checked out, but the bass sound is different. Like I said, it kind of has a southern rock thing going on, very bluesy in its guitar usage, but also extremely gritty on that guitar tone. We kind of tone it down a little bit after the intro, but the guitar still has a lot of bite to it. The end of the song is very different from where we start, though. Ignoring the outro, because I'm not sure how to read that yet. It seems to be completely new. I don't think I heard that sub bass tone. I don't believe I heard an organ during the main part of the song. It actually makes sense within the instrumentation of it, within the genre. An organ would not be out of place, but I just don't remember hearing one. And the water dripping, any sort of, well, honestly, any sort of field recording. I don't think we had during the rest of the track any sort of sampling or anything like that. So it's like the final 40 seconds or so sort of comes out of nowhere. I'm really interested to get to the lyrics, although I think I know what 80% of them are. There is that new vocal line that comes in about a minute before the outro, and the opening verse that hopefully will shed some light into what the outro is supposed to represent. There's also the chance, I suppose, that the outro is based around the album itself. Where does this where does this get introduced? It's the penultimate song to the album, with the final track being the shortest, almost the shortest. Um, this is the longest on the album, though. Yeah, it's kind of tough to glean any information from song length and song placement. Sometimes you can get a gut feel about that. I'm kind of thinking that what comes next, the true final track, is more of an outro to the album than a song itself. And it probably ties in a little bit to how Nothing But Heart ended, but I mean, that's just guesses. Again, based on length and placement, like you can't you can't judge a lot by that. Um, but my gut, it's been right in the past, so I'll bring it up just in case, I suppose. With all of that said, sort of my thoughts here. I had a joke I wanted to make during the song, but it's a serious track, I think, for the most part. Just about the repetition of lyrics, and I was going to say something about not really needing to head to the lyrics page to dissect this one. But it is a serious song. I don't want to interrupt it with a joke like that, especially since I don't think it's like a good one. It's like, good dad joke, right? It's a good groaner. All right, analysis. That's what we're here for. I'm not a comedian. I should not try to go that route. The opening of the song is grit. That guitar comes in. I called it grungy. I called it gritty. It's got a ton of bite. It's very gnarly, ton of compression, ton of distortion. It is just a big sound. Now, interestingly, it's not the loudest part of the song. It's the loudest part for, I don't know, probably the halfway point, the first 4 minutes. It's probably the loudest, but it's still only about 80% of the volume as far as that finale is concerned. I don't know if I should read too much into this. A sound that by itself dominates a collection of sounds for a while until more come together. Something about the power of many over the power of one, defendant numerous, which I think is Latin for power in numbers or strength in numbers, about how maybe one thing can be very strong, but no matter how strong it is, it can't defeat many of another. And it could relate to, I don't know, emotion, mental state, anything like this. It could represent a lot of things. That's sort of where my mind goes based off of the one line I picked up, Nothing But Heart, and this concept of a very loud opening that leads to a very quiet, vulnerable verse. We get a very bluesy, distorted guitar here. This is a classic southern rock vibe going on. We got a lot of slides going on the guitar, very twangy, but again, it has a little bit of that distortion that we expect from the rock sound. It's not country music, it isn't folk, it's rock. It's just very blues influenced. And the more I think about it, no, never mind. I was gonna say maybe this is blues rock, but it isn't. It's got that southern country twang to it too. Um, Definitely got a bit of a southern fried feel to it. But the solo guitar very light drum work. Just a very light hi-hat and bass kick and snare. I think they came in later. I think it just starts with hi-hat, but eventually we get a bass kick on 1 and a snare on 3, and that's how the drums are for the entirety of the song. You got hi-hat on every beat, a couple of flourishes on that hi-hat, bass kick on every beat 1, snare on every beat 3, and that's it, really. A little bit of flourish here and there. I don't think it's totally rigid in what it does, but it doesn't deviate from that very far. The bass, when the chord changes, the bass changes their root tone. And so you get something like boom, boom, and it's just like these long resonant bass tones that decay into silence. There's a couple of places where the bass or the chord changes twice as fast as usual. I don't know if that means it's changing every 2 beats instead of every 4. It really depends on how you feel this as far as time signature goes, but regardless, it changes twice as often, and we finally get to hear some of the bass notes overlap a little bit, kind of hear the notes back to back rather than allowing them to decay into nothing. So it has a little bit more space, but also because the bass is pushed off to the right, sort of by itself. When it decays, it's just silence over there, and you just have the drums, the vocals, and the guitar. It's a very sparse opening. It comes in very quiet. I think my readings were about, I guess about 20 decibels under max. So, yeah, very quiet, especially after the opening, like I said, which was only about 10 dBs under max. The vocals are very vulnerable here, just kind of feeling very calm. There's not a lot of projection to them. They're kind of withheld a little airier. The volume is a bit down. It just kind of feels like someone out of energy. It's kind of singing with the last bit of oomph they have before they kind of give up or pass out or something. This is where the slow burn begins. We have a few 16 bar groupings of this. And then we start repeating the phrase, nothing but hearts. And this is where the song begins to build. I think we say the line 4 times before we have the female vocals come in. And they started off right panned and then moved left pan for the rest of the song. Maybe I'm misremembering that. Maybe it was left the entire time. I vaguely remember it starting on the right though. This is the first layer that gets brought in. There eventually becomes a guitar on top of the bass line over here on the right. Just a nice little twangy idea. Not melodic. If you want to call it a riff, you can. It's very one note in what it does. It just adds a little bit of extra flourish to the song. Kind of gives it more of that southern bluesy thing going on. The drums get louder, the bass gets louder, the guitar gets louder, everything increases in volume except the vocals. We're going to touch on that in a second. I want to talk about some more of these instruments that pop up. Most of them, though, are guitar. We have a new guitar line that pops up on the left, probably around minute 4 or 5 of the song, and it is very melodic. Sometimes it devolves into a sort of riffiness, but other times just linear melody writing. I think this is interesting because the vocals have taken on an ostinato idea, or that's just a classical term for a guitar riff or electronic loop or something. It's just an idea that you play over and over and over. When you get to the end, you just repeat it. The vocals don't really change rhythmically, melodically. They just are. Little inflection changes, I think, on some of the deliveries, but that feels more of an improv kind of thing, where they didn't just record the one line and copy paste it. He literally sang that line every time. That's sort of the idea I get out of it because of these little micro inflection changes. But for the most part, generally speaking, it's just the same thing over and over. So this new guitar part that comes in, kind of, I mean, technically it's not counterpoint, but it does play a very strong melodic idea against the main melodic concept. Again, I don't think it's strong enough to be a melody. It is technically an ostinato at this point, but it is, I think, still what most people's ears are going to be gravitating towards simply because it is the vocals and because it has a melodic property to it, just that the pitches do change across it. But then, not too long after this, we do have a proper counterpoint come in, the left melody guitar and the right new vocal melody. I don't know what's going on there, and I think technically it is also an ostinato. It's just not a 1 bar idea. It's probably closer to a 4 or 8 bar idea. I do think I heard repetition to the lyrics themselves, but still, it provides something with a bit more linear movement that can kind of play off of what the guitar is doing. And at this point, it's when I noticed that, yeah, we still have a lot of twangy, distorted guitar work in here. It still has a very bluesy, southern vibe to it. It's still rock, but there's a choir or something going on. There's a lot of voices. A lot of voices going on. I don't really know what they're doing. I just hear a collection of them towards the back of the song. Between that, the rising volume, the swelling of the instruments, the layering of all of these new lines, it feels positive. Maybe not victorious, maybe not triumphant, but something to be celebrated? Very different vibe from the empty, down on your luck with the last bit of energy, I'm going to tell you my tale kind of energy that we had at the beginning of this segment. I don't know what that's supposed to mean, but the phrase nothing but heart, which means only having heart, yeah, I could see that lending itself well into this journey of growth, of going from nothing at your lowest and using positivity of the heart, empathy and compassion in order to grow this nothingness into something worthwhile, worth celebrating. That's my read on the song from a primarily musical perspective combined with the one lyric I picked up. We'll dive into that a little bit more when we hit the lyrics, though. The final thing I want to touch on, though, and is the center vocals, the core vocal parts, the nothing but heart. I mentioned that all these instruments are getting louder. I pointed over to the volume bars over there in the graphics. Yeah, they definitely started out pretty quiet, and at the end, they were peaking. Massive volume dynamics going on here. But if you listen to the vocals, where once they were very clearly heard against the soul electric guitar, the quiet bass, and the quiet drums, they're kind of getting drowned out here. I like this. I like this a lot. To me, it represents a sort of swelling up of others around the one. It is the concept of a support network, I think. If you are at your lowest and those who care about you surround you to lift you up, it actually doesn't change anything about you. Remember, I talked about the beginning, how the opening guitar feels like something with a bit of animosity, right? And then that was contrasted with the quiet voice of the main verse. And sort of something negative leading to this moment with our main vocalist, and then building something out of that. That's the general narrative I get on this track. And what we build out of it is louder than that original gnarly sound we had in the intro. So let's just assign some stuff to this. The opening gritty guitar is depression, the opening verse is feeling at your lowest, and the peak of the slow burn is having your friends and family help you out help you up through this depression, and get back to a stable point in life. At no point does your voice actually change in the song, or I think in the metaphor here, you don't physically become stronger. You're still who you are. You just have people to help you up. And so the vocals here never really get louder. They just get surrounded by a lot of positive sounds that become loud around them and thus help make their voice sound louder. I really like that idea. At least that's, again, what I get out of this concept of not being better because of those around you, but just having a really strong support group around you, being part of a really strong group. And that feeling of not being lifted up, but just being swept into something larger, I think works really well. And at least to me, showcases a much better metaphor that's more accurate to how it feels to be picked up by those around you when you're at a low point. You don't actually feel any bigger or better, but you do feel warmer. You don't feel alone anymore. And at least that's what the song says to me musically, as far as a narrative goes. And like I said, I don't really hear that too often. Whether it's in music or film, it's always about being better because of those around you. And I don't think that's how it always happens. You just become a part of something bigger, and that helps you feel better without being better. And sometimes it's all about mind over matter. It's about feeling something more so than being something. Manifestation, that kind of idea. Let's dive into some lyrics here, see what's going on with that intro line. I guess the intro verse, and then some of that secondary vocal stuff going on towards the end. All right. Well, there's a lot less vocals to that opening verse than I thought. All it says is, I would be your king, but you want to be free. Confusion and art, I am nothing but heart. I assume it sings that stanza repeatedly, because I'm pretty sure I heard a lot more than just 4 lines in those opening few moments. I'm not too sure what this means. I mean, the beginning is obvious. I would be your king, but you want to be free. Yeah, that could represent a few things. Just the idea of like the modern day social media concept of calling your significant other your king or your queen. I don't necessarily think it has a concept of ruling here as much as just being royalty. Not like a king to a peasant relationship, but a king to a queen sort of relationship. It says, but you want to be free. So, like, this makes sense, right? We could be together, but you'd rather be separate. You'd rather be alone. You got to do your own thing right now. He says, confusion and art, I'm nothing but heart. I don't get this part. The final line, I think, alludes to a sort of empathy that he has for this person, and maybe even a bit of envy to just be able to go out and say, you know what, I'm going to do things solo for a while. This is the path I got to go. And understanding this other person's want for this. The confusion and art, though, I don't know. I mean, there could be a confusion in more of being of two minds, wanting things to stay the way they are, but also wanting to make sure this other person does what they need to do and letting them have that and being sort of confused at this duality within. But the art, I don't know. That's what throws me up a little bit. Of course, after this, we have I'm Nothing But Heart over and over and over, swelling the song to the peak. That new vocal line that comes in towards the end says, as we split in two, once again alluding to the idea that maybe they were together in some capacity of some sort of relationship, and now they are going their own ways. It says, as we split in two from all of the things we do, it would behoove us all to remember that all we are is what we love and not a fragment more. I've told you this before. So, as we split apart, focus on what is positive in life. What we are in life is only what we love. If we love nothing, then we are just hatred. And that's not a life worth lived. We need to have things that we appreciate, that we enjoy. We need beauty in our lives. So don't let the negativity of the end of this relationship color your world. It says, I can't say it anymore. As you wear the gown that's made of white and gold, may we someday be assured as we walk into the night. This part makes less sense to me. I'm trying to think about how a splitting of people would require one to be wearing a gown of gold and white. What is significant about that? My first thought was white with gold accents to it. Maybe a wedding dress of some sort. Maybe even a white suit. Again, my mind goes to a wedding, but it's a gown. I almost forgot that that was on. It's a gown made of gold and white. So again, I kind of go back to a wedding dress, but gown is not necessarily a dress, is it? It makes me think more of, I don't know, a coming of age thing, moving from one state to the next. Sort of like what is it called? Blanking out. In school, when you graduate. Graduation ceremony. There we go. Dang. But those typically aren't white gowns, are they? I'm pretty sure I've really only seen darker colors. Mostly black. I think I've seen maroon, maybe, in like a film. I don't know. I can't think I've seen maroon in real life. So again, maybe not necessarily a graduation of school, but a graduation of life, moving from one point to another. And it says, may we someday be assured as we walk into the night. Every time I say this, I think assured of what? But maybe it's just the feeling of being assured. That as we walk into the night, as we walk into darkness, things that we don't know, places without light, new areas, anything that isn't of comfort, anything that we don't have knowledge of, that we can be assured while we go into these areas. Not necessarily assured of anything specific, but just to have the fortitude to know that this is where I need to be, this unexplored part of my life, of the world, is where I'm supposed to be, and I need to explore this to grow. So then, what I get out of this final stanza is simply that even though this relationship is ending, or that we are going two separate paths, whatever, that we need to focus on positive and focus on love and challenging ourselves with strength and a surety. That's not a word, but maybe it is. And knowing that where we are is where we are supposed to be, and allowing ourselves to be better tomorrow by walking the untread path. It's basically just a song that says, don't be sad about this, and good luck on your endeavors. That's what I get out of it. Which makes sense for somebody who says I'm nothing but heart, trying not to focus on the negative and trying to spread the positivity that they kind of have in their heart, the empathy, the compassion, the love. Now, this doesn't really overlay on top of my reading of Finding Strength in Numbers that I got out of the music, but I do think that it has a bit of that warmth, that love element to it, of being surrounded by love. Even if it is just two people talking to each other, even if the two people are walking separate paths now, you can still feel that love that you are sending to the other person, or that you are feeling from the other person now, even if it's just remembering these final words they said to you. That's a bit of a stretch, I think. Makes me want to go back and listen to it again, see if I get something else out of it, knowing what's going on lyrically. But the more I think about how the song grows and what happens to it, the main vocals kind of getting drowned out in all of the layers, I don't know that I'd walk away with a different read on it musically. But maybe that's just because I'm a bit narrow-sighted with this. I have the blinders on. I've kind of stuck in my own opinion of this, which this is my thoughts on Lowe's Nothing But Heart. I'm curious if anyone else has a different read on the music, or even a different read on the lyrics. They are kind of straightforward, but also a lot of room for interpretation, I think, especially given how few lyrics there are in this track. So, what are your thoughts, opinions, perspectives on this song? Please put all of it down in the comments section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. It takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. Alright, that wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.